What's up, fellow Sambarians? So I haven't made a video in quite some time now. I have just been extremely busy. I've got, let's see, three sandbars here, one Suzuki, one Mitsubishi, and one Daihatsu. I got quite the plethora of K trucks here. So I figured this isn't going to be a whole lot of showing you how to do something, but I think I would try to start doing this more, just kind of going over what I did, kind of explaining what I did to customers' trucks or vans or whatever that they drop off to have me work on here at OK Garage. Oh my gosh. Hey, leave her alone. Go on, Patita. You're okay, Patita. Hey, no. Sorry, Patita is laying underneath our shed, sitting on eggs, so we're gonna have more baby ducks here pretty soon. And since we can't actually see her because she's pretty deep underneath the shed, the only way to really see her is if I chopped a hole in the floor, and it's not really worth it. So it's gonna be a surprise how many little baby ducklings come waddling out from underneath that shed. I might have to do a duck K truck and duck giveaway here soon or something, because we're gonna have so many ducks, and I have too much of I got too much of a soft spot for these birds that I can't take her away from her little ducklings. I mean, she's trying real hard to hatch these eggs, so I'm just gonna let her do it, and I guess we're just gonna have a ton of ducks here. Oh my gosh, it's hilarious. Anyways, so I thought I would just do kind of a video explaining what I did, some tips, how to do what I did, and that way you guys can see certain things on certain sandbars that, or whatever, whatever I'm filming, that maybe you didn't know existed, especially this one. This one's got a lot of cool stuff that I'm sure a lot of you have not seen or knew that actually existed, and it's kind of very unique. So I'm just going to start with what I did to this thing. Actually, I'm probably not even going to be able to list everything I've done because it's so much, but I did a timing belt and water pump and the tensioner and the cam and crank seals with all genuine Subaru parts. So I get that asked quite a bit. What's better to use, genuine parts or the GMB parts? I mean, if you're really, you got money to burn and you're kind of an OEM, kind of OCD, but you're OEM freak like me, I usually like to run the OEM parts. They are obviously more pricey than the aftermarket parts, quite a bit more pricey. Obviously, they're Subaru branded parts. But for the most part, I think ASIN is actually the one who makes a lot of the water pumps, and then they get stamped with Subaru and stuff like that. So the aftermarket stuff is not bad. I use it all the time here. I have not had any complaints with the GMB and Mitsubishi parts that I use. Mitsubishi actually makes probably most of all the belts that you see on your sandbar. It will say Subaru, but it will also say Mitsubishi. And yes, it looks like Mitsubishi, but it's Mitsubishi. And Mitsubishi makes a lot of the belts stamped with Subaru part numbers. So that's the timing belt, blah, blah, blah. So I did OEM parts on here, and we also did a thermostat, or I did a thermostat. So that allowed me to drop all the coolant from the block, and then also let all the coolant from the front drain out from the front. Now, when I drained his coolant, it was very green, so there wasn't a huge concern of having to flush his entire system. It was clean. So obviously all the coolant in the block drained out when I pulled the pump off, and all the coolant from the front drained out when I did the front thermostat. Yes, it wasn't like flushed, but again, it was very clean green coolant, so I feel like it wasn't necessary. If you are pulling out your water pump and your thermostat and you notice a lot of rusty brown fluid, then at that point, yes, you're going to want to try to flush that out as much as possible, because your heater core gets plugged up. Obviously, your radiator gets plugged up. There's metal lines on the sandbars that run across the bottom that will eventually eat through the metal pipes. And there's a sandbar here right now that's got leaking metal pipes that I'm going to have to replace. So it's always good to do your coolant. Check the condition of your coolant to see how far you need to go in depth with replacing your coolant. I also did, a tune-up cap, rotor, spark plugs. So let's go back there and I'll show you what I did so you can see a little hack, a sandbar hack that I have. Okay, so if you have an older sandbar, round eye, we call these the round eye, obviously, because they have round headlights. So I call them round eye. I don't know, I think some people call them panda face or something. It kind of looks like a panda. But since these have round eye, look at these wheels, man. I washed this thing and shined up everything, and this truck's looking good. I want to try to start washing customers' cars here when I'm done working on them, because it feels better when the car is clean. You know, you feel so much happier with a cleaner car. I don't know what it is about having a dirty car. It just feels like a pile of junk. But then as soon as you wash it, you feel like $1,000,000. Maybe that's just me. Okay, so some tips on your round eye. You're going to most likely see that when you want to do cap, rotor, plugs, wires, all that stuff, you most likely have the 90-degree style cap. So those little ends are pointing outwards. So basically that cap that is pointing out towards you, that is on your older style sandbar, does not exist anymore. They don't make them anymore, and it's not worth trying to hunt one down. You don't need it. When you are doing your tune-up, you're going to want to replace your plug wires. So you can switch over to the straight out style where they come straight out. And then, since you're going to be replacing the plug wires anyways, which you should always replace your plug wires the same time you do your cap and rotor, because these boots at the boots here will fail and stuff will short out on the block or the head, whatever. You can buy the normal style sandbar plug wires, because there are two different versions. Obviously, the 90-degree had shorter plug wires because they didn't have to wrap all the way around. So since I have that straight wire cap with the normal style plug wires, it fits this engine. So if you're new to sandbars and you're seeing this and you're like, oh man, where's that 90-degree cap at? I can't find that. You don't need it. You can run the straight out cap. They share the same exact rotor. They share the same exact distributor cap seal, which I have all that stuff, or you can get it in Japan. And you can switch over and get the NGK plug wires or the red OEM ones that I sell, because they're going to work with the straight style cap. He did before had the 90-degree style cap. So when he had these wires on it, it just was like super bunched up because they were way too long. So it worked out perfect. He already had the wires. I put the cap on. Now it looks completely normal, like it should. But just beware, if you got that old style, you could get some corrosion forming in the distributor. It will snap the screw into the distributor. So I actually drilled out that hole, and I went to Home Depot and bought myself it's like an M7 or I can't remember now. You can just match it. It's pretty easy. You take the old screw and you can match it at Home Depot, and put a nut and a lock washer on the other side, because that one had snapped inside the distributor. So I wanted to obviously be able to cinch it down from both sides. So that's what I did. You could shorten this bolt down. Obviously, it's extremely long. But yeah, just for visual aspects, you can see that I replaced that one because it snapped, and that was the best way to fix it. And let's see, what else did we do back here? I adjusted the valves. So I put a new valve cover gasket in because the old one actually broke when I pulled it off. But you kind of want to, when you get your fresh import, you're going to want to check your valves, replace that valve cover gasket. He did a motor mount back here, and that motor mount as well. And while I was in there, you can't really see, you can kind of see some silver back there. I put a new supercharger pulley tensioner on way back in there. You can see it. Those get super rusty and the bearings can be bad. I'm gonna start doing this now. The oil dipstick is exposed when you do your timing. So I think in my kits now, I have the timing kits with all the time cover seals, which I ended up replacing this back seal this cover because it was totally busted on his other one. So I have all new timing cover seals on that, which is good to replace those when you do your timing belt. But I'm going to start supplying the O-rings to the dipsticks because those are 99% of the time leaking oil, and you got to mess with this thing anyway, so you might as well just pull it out and replace the O-ring. So I have Subaru OEM O-rings for the dipstick, not this end, but the end that goes into the block or the oil pump. I'm going to start having that as an option with your timing kit. So you can do everything at one time and be done with it, because once it's exposed, you should do it, because any other time you're going to be able to do it is if you take everything off for the timing belt stuff, which is super tedious just to replace that O-ring. Okay, so also along with that, well, you can kind of see the silver there too. So that's that silver down there is the tensioner. I replaced his alternator belt because that was pretty bad. His supercharger belt's okay, so I left that. He has a new alternator because the other one pooped out on him. I also went ahead, because he didn't know, and obviously it had been done, the supercharger fluid. So when I did the supercharger fluid, I used the AC Delco supercharger oil. You can get this off of Amazon. It's like 12 bucks or something. And very, very easy to do. If you want to just check your level, you'll remove the cover that covers the throttle linkage to your throttle body. You can't really see it, but if you take this cover off real easy, there's two 10s. There's a plug down there, and you'll take that plug out only, and it's got a little metal dipstick on it, and you can check it, and it should be about halfway on the dipstick. But if you're just going to change the oil, what I did was you take that plug out, and then I took like a Mighty Vac, the little hand pump Mighty Vac that you can get at like AutoZone or whatever. I made a little thing, a little tiny hose that slipped into the drain plug, not the drain plug, just the dipstick hole, and sucked out all the fluid. So if you take that one out, and then if you take this top filler out, basically what it does is like breaks the suction, if you will, and then all the fluid will rush out the bottom. So you really don't want to mess with that guy unless you're going to fill it, because if you take that off and you take that dipstick one out, all the fluid, it's going to like siphon out. So then you're going to lose all your fluid, and at that point you're going to need to fill it anyways. And so that's your fill. It's an Allen key, so very easy. And the bottom one I think was a 10 mil or 12 mil, I can't remember now. So I sucked it all with a Mighty Vac. I got about 45 milliliters sucked out of it, and it was pretty black, so it was time to change it. That stuff is like a honey color. And I took a little syringe and I just, squirted it in to the filler hole a little bit at a time. It doesn't take, I sucked out 45 milliliters, so I put in 45 milliliters, checked on the dipstick, and, everything was good. So I did a supercharger oil little tune-up. And he did do the Special K's exhaust. He didn't have the thermal sensor grounded, so a little barbecue light that comes on your dash. This thing has a hard time focusing for some reason. This wire had gone to the thermal sensor, which was on the muffler over here if you're going to change out your exhaust. I ended up grounding that for him, so that little overheating light looks like a barbecue light or something on the dash. You'll want to ground that so that turns off that light. So I went ahead and fixed that, so that light's not on anymore. He might miss that light. They might have been really good friends. Hopefully he said his goodbyes. Let's see, what else did I do? I did the white line end links. So I ended up doing the end link bushing or the end links themselves, because the old ones were pretty shot. So this will kind of help stiffen up the front end with the sway bar. So I went ahead and did that. I also went ahead and man, it is so hot inside these cars. That vinyl will burn your butt. I had to replace the coolant reservoir up underneath the seat on the trucks. This is in a different location on the vans. So if you got a van, the van one is actually going to be, if you're looking at the engine, the van one's going to be right up underneath there. And at that point, to change it, there's actually like a hatch inside the van under the carpet. You can get to it there, but in the trucks, it's up here in the front. So I had to replace this, which was very easy. He had a old worn out cap on the reservoir, so I replaced that. I ended up putting this clamp on his overflow because it was very loose, and it would drip down. So I put a little, the little snap or little rings that cinch the hose down, little hose clamp on there to keep it from potentially leaking anymore. But that was pretty straightforward. There's two 10 mils up here, and there's two on the back. If you take the wheel off, you have a ton of room. It's like, let's see, you can kind of see. Well, if you take the wheel off, you got a lot of room to get to the back side of this reservoir. So I ended up replacing that. It's just plastic, and the seam over time, it will start to weep, and then it will eventually crack, and that'll be a problem. So just check that out when you're poking around on your sandbar. Very easy to change. You just undo the hoses and reconnect all the hoses. I do have those in my store, along with the van style in case your van is leaking. So I ended up doing that. I'm trying to think what else I did. Oh yeah, I ended up doing basically almost rebuilding his brake calipers. The slides were hanging up, so the brakes were super wonky. I put newish rotors on them. They were basically brand new. I used them for like a day, and then I put the slotted ones on my sandbar. So I put new rotors on, rebuilt his calipers basically, so it brakes way better. I did to the back. I checked and inspected the rear drums and the shoes in the back. The passenger side, they were like brand new, and it had a brand new cotter pin on it, so they obviously did this side. But for some reason on the driver's side, this side didn't hold up so well. It actually, the shoe had fallen off the metal part, so when I took the brake drum off, it just fell on the ground. So I replaced the brake shoe on this side. That I hate doing back brakes, so I don't really have any tips or tricks on doing that. Just take your time. I did have a special tool that helps with it's like a retainer clip style thing that you can get when you're doing rear brakes. I had that tool, so it allows you to push and turn this thing and release it. But I will tell you a trick when you're doing your back drums. You have that, there's like that, the rear brake spreader that has the notches on it, and it clicks, as it turns and the brakes come out, and so then it keeps it in place. When I used to be a diesel mechanic, we used to have to do drum brakes all the time because all those trucks were with drum brakes. And the trick to setting the correct distance for that spreader for the brake pads is you'll set it at like 0, and you can tap the drum, and we call it like the bell test, I think it was. So if you tap it and it rings like a bell, then it's way too far out. So then you go in a few clicks and you do it again, and you go in a few more clicks and you do it again until the bell, you don't want it to be a solid hit, like just like a dunk, like no sound, because then obviously the brake is touching the drum. But if you back it off just enough so where it has a little bit of sound and a little bit of like, not like a hollow sound, then the brake is like right there. And that's usually where you want to set that little spreader. Again, I'm sorry, I don't know the names. I hate doing brakes in the back, so it's like a spreader. You'll see it if you're going to do your brakes. And you can take like a ball peen hammer and do that little test. Just kind of knock it, and once it's like not exactly hollow sounding, but also not solid, that's where you want it to be, and that's a good position for the brakes. Yep, rebuilt that caliper as well, so the slides worked. I think there was some more, I'm trying to think, but let's go over some cool stuff that's in this sandbar. So if you didn't know, the Akabo style sandbars had digital trip counters, where typically it would be your little tray or your cup holder. So that's pretty cool. Let's see, it does work. Turn it on, let's see. Wait, what? Now we're not working all of a sudden? What's happening? Update. Digital trip counter is working. So, I don't know. I turned on the AC and let things cool down in here. It's extremely hot. I think it probably just the electronics got hot in the sun, which isn't good. I guess we should tell the owner he needs to put some shades in here just to keep the heat down, and I guess. But that's the digital trip counter that came in the Akabos. I did see one of these pop up in auctions one time. Very, 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 very expensive. I think it was like $300 or $400 just for this thing. I think that probably held like cigarettes. Seriously, I think that held probably cigarettes or something. Your pack of cigarettes, and then here's your trip counter. Akabo deal only. But yeah, you can, you know, measure your kilometers for the day. And then what also is pretty cool in the older sandbar, supercharged ones, they have almost like a boost gauge. So when it starts boosting, it turns the light on. Obviously it's negative pressure until the supercharger spools up. So that's kind of cool. A little different on the older superchargers. The new ones don't, pretty sure they don't display that light when it's boosted up. But yeah, there we go. It's working. But that's kind of cool. It has the digital trip counter, which was like an Akabo deal. Also, the Akabos had this really cool mirror. So it has like this cover here for your normal mirror, and then you have this mirror. So you see way more when you're looking in that mirror out the back. You basically see like the whole entire side of the truck, which is really cool. So yeah, clean this one up. Got those wheels shining up real nice. She's looking real good. She's running real good. Oh, I forgot. I almost forgot. I did the front and rear differential fluid as well on the sandbar. Which is always good to do. So the front is going to take a 7590 GL4, GL5, doesn't matter. I use a Valvoline. You can get it in the squeeze bag at like AutoZone. But in the rear, that's where it's important. You need to make sure you get a GL4 only, because it's got brass and you don't want the GL5 to mix or something. I think it eats the brass or something like that. So I buy the red line, the MT90, which is good. It's on Amazon. I just bought the gallon jug. It's like 90 something bucks. It's kind of pricey, but this will knock out, you know, a sandbar and a half maybe. And then I put the pump in it, and yeah, that works perfect for when you're doing the fluid changes. Just make sure when you do the fluid change, you can actually remove the fill bolt before you drop all the oil, because obviously they're old and they get crusty, and you just want to make sure that you can refill it when you're done. So the front's very easy. It's very straightforward. Using something like that pump is very handy to get into those really tight spaces down there. Obviously when you drain the fluid, wipe that drain plug off because it's magnetic and it has oil shavings on it. And I'm trying to think if there's... I just get the truck level and I fill it up slowly until it just gets to the fill spot, and then you'll start to see it spill over. And at that point, I won't pump any more into it. I'll just stop and then plug it, because you don't want too much fluid, otherwise it aerates it and it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. And obviously if you do too little, then it's not getting everything lubricated like it should. So, yeah, that is the sandbar. It's a 91, I think. 90, 91. Brown dye. But yeah, I did a lot. There's probably a lot more stuff that I did to it, and I just can't think of it right now. But I figured I'd make a video and show you guys, give you some little tips and tricks when you're doing stuff to these things. Just make sure you rebuild your calipers or clean them. Really make sure that they're working properly when you do those. Supercharger oil, check up on that oil. Just make sure that it's clean. Clean oil is the best oil, and that's AC Delco oil off of Amazon. That can be purchased pretty easily. But cool. Thanks for watching, guys. Um, I'll try to. I'm not sure what I'm going to make next. It's just been very busy, so it's hard to make videos. Um, thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Thanks for hanging in there. If you're trying to ask me questions and I'm getting slow to respond, I'm not ignoring you. I'm just very busy. Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Check out the website if you need any parts. okgarage.com, and like, subscribe, all that fun stuff if you'd like. I'd appreciate it. And I will see you guys on the next one.